Well, welcome back to the Cory Lee Show, guys. Got a super exciting episode today. Get your pens, get your papers. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say this is probably going to be highly motivational and inspirational. Today, I got my friend Scott King on the show, the episode today with us. And I was telling Scott before we pressed record that Scott, outside of Logan, is the only person that's been on here multiple times. And so you can actually go back and check out the previous episode. It was on 10/29 of 2020, where we talked about forever change your branch of the family tree. And that's something that Scott King says a lot that I absolutely love. And so, Scott, welcome back to the Cory Lee
Thank
Show.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be back. Man, you putting them dates out there. I'm looking at the date today. And I'm like, have we been doing this long?
Yeah, it's
We've
been a
we've been
minute.
doing this for a while.
It
Yeah,
has. And so,
it's
Scott,
been a
if
minute.
somebody has, for those that don't know who you are, those that maybe have not listened to that episode yet, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Where you at? Where you at in the world? All that stuff.
Yeah, a little about me. Well, my name's Scott King. I was born and raised in the hills of eastern Kentucky, a little town called Jackson, and I made my way to Northwest Indiana in 1995, where I started a family and started a life. I went to work. It'd probably be easier to tell you what I haven't done versus going through what I have. I've dabbled in a little of everything, and I landed myself into real estate and more real estate investing now as compared to the last time I was on the show. We do a lot of buy and hold rental properties, some flipping, and a lot of buying and selling is what the primary business is now. Married, got kids, just living life. Don't like the cold weather, especially this time of year.
I'm with you, man. So at the time of this recording, I want you to know, Scott King, it was 9 degrees in North Mississippi when I woke up this morning. And so anyway, I
Hmm.
felt like I was up in Indiana, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it was 5 here.
yeah, oh man.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, I love your line about forever change your branch of the family tree. And what I love about that is the generational tone to it of where you're going as a family as it relates to it doesn't matter what my past history has been like up until this point, that I'm going to take responsibility to do
Yeah.
something about it, whether it's good or bad. If it's good, I'm going to keep growing this branch. But if it's bad, I can do something about it. And I just want to tee you up with that thought. Like, why is that so important to you?
Why is it? I mean, there were some quotes that I heard when I started my self-development journey. Um, Dave Ramsey was very influential early on for me to start getting my finances under control. And he talked about it, from the proverb. A wise man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Another translation says a righteous man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. And he talked about changing his branch of the family tree. And I kind of just borrowed that from him and thought, that has become my goal in life to forever change my branch of the King family tree. And some of that comes from the history, my family history on both my father's side and then on my mother's side. Um, I come from a family that had generational wealth at one time.
Hmm.
And as things tend to happen, it kind of got, squandered through the generations to where we find ourselves to today. And there was something in me that wanted that back and wanted that back for my children. And so I adopted that philosophy. God put me here to forever change my branch of the King family tree. And if I don't do it, I am only passing that buck to a future generation to have to rise and do the same thing that I'm doing now. And as we know, with time, things become harder and harder.
Yeah.
And so that kind of became the premise of what the conversation we're going to have today around the lie of comfort.
Hmm.
Everything that we find comfort in is typically a lie we're telling ourselves that's holding us back from true growth and realizing true potential. So, and I want to just put a disclaimer on that. I do not claim by no stretch of the imagination to have mastered these things, only that has become a component of awareness. And as you and I have talked about several times, we don't play the shame game when it comes to that. But awareness is key. And as I have become more aware of some of the areas where I have allowed that lie of comfort to infiltrate my life, I've realized that it's held me back. And I've started to be able to change that based off that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And, when I hear you talk about forever changing my branch of the family tree, it we talk about giving me responsibility for today, but man, it makes me want to, I guess the way I imagine it is I'm a runner. And so I'm thinking more of like a relay race, that whenever you hand the baton off to the next runner, you're not handing off at a standstill, right? The one is running, but the one that's about to grab it is running as well. And so you are equipping the next generation. They are equipped at the point of handoff to where that they can run further, run faster, build higher, build bigger, that they're not having to lay another foundation. And that's kind of what I hear and what you're saying is that one point in your family line, there was some wealth. And through different choices that happen, and you building another foundation that you're trying to set it up in such a way that your kids don't have to build another foundation. They can just have a foundation to build upon. And
Absolutely. To take the foundation that we're building now and build from it. And not only that, but to curb some of this momentum of the pendulum swinging. We were here at one point in the family tree or the family future, and now we're swinging way over here. Let's make sure that we're not coming back. So, not on just building some foundations, but also teaching and preventing that downward trend that we tend to see in a lot of things in life. It tends to be that motion. We're way over here on some things, and then we come over here, and then we're like, well, this is too far this way. Now we're coming back over here. Let's see if we can find that happy medium to where we're continually building with that momentum that you're talking about, passing that baton fluently and seamlessly, so that handoff is not noticed.
Yeah, I like that. And so one of the reasons we're doing another podcast today is you and I were having a conversation around what you just mentioned, the lie of comfort. This idea that if it's difficult, that we shouldn't participate, that everything should come to us easy. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that. I'd love for you to pack that. Why do you call that a lie? Why is the lie of comfort actually a lie?
Well, I would like to kick this off with reading just a little bit from the Bible.
Let's go, Scotty King. Y'all get your Bibles out.
Matthew 4. And for those of you know that Matthew 4, this is where Jesus has just been baptized, and he's fasted 40 days, and he's been led off to the wilderness. And from the King James Version, it reads like this: Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward unhungered. My grandfather likes to put out that part. I have been unhungered many times, he says. But I like this part. And when the tempter, that was what the writer termed him as, came to him, he said, If thou be the Son of God, command these stones to be made bread. And then, of course, we know he answers that, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from his mouth. But the part of that I really like to hone in on is that he was tempted, and he could have very easily bought into that lie that this would be comfortable and good for me, in light of, I know what I'm doing is difficult now, but what's going to happen in the future is going to be so much better if I don't give into this lie of immediate comfort and gratification. And that has become a lens in which I look through a lot of choices in life. I mean, let's think about it every morning. When you wake up, your alarm goes off, and if you've not conditioned and disciplined yourself, what is your immediate reaction to want to do? Roll over and hit the snooze button. Because, boy, it's comfortable to lay there in that nice warm bed, and our brain, our subconscious will lie to us and tell us it's okay. We can sleep just another 5 minutes. But there are certain motivational people that'll tell you that is the first win or first loss of the day, whether you give in to hitting that snooze button or you get up through discipline and hit the ground running. And some days I win that battle, and some days I don't. If I'm being honest, there are days that I lose that battle. I give into that lie of comfort, and I sleep an extra 5. But again, we're not talking about shame here, just awareness.
Yeah.
I like what Grant Cardone says. He made a quote that said, comfort makes more prisoners than all the prisons combined. And if you think about that, that's what we live in. I mean, let's just think about it from a standpoint of our diet. How easy is it for us to go to the refrigerator and open the door and find comfort? I'm bored. I want that sweet thing, even though I know that it might not necessarily be the best for me. and it's that lie of comfort. It's okay. Oh, it'll be all right. Just have that. It'll satisfy that initial craving, curb that. You'll curb that initial hunger. But what have you done? What have you traded?
Mm.
Many of Jim Rohn's quotes challenge us to step outside of our comfort zones and push for growth. The comfort of the familiar can be a hindrance in applying learned principles and philosophies, and that was something he said. And it often entails confronting fears and taking risks. Anytime there's fear and risk involved, we're wired in such a way that we want to reach for the comfort. What's the comfortable? Or do I have to step outside of that and face those fears, face those demons?
Yeah. That's good stuff, Scott King. I love that live comfort. And I love what you said about the first win of the day is that snooze button.
Yes.
That snooze button. And like for me, I feel like I'm a fairly disciplined person, but sometimes that snooze button will get me. And what you said, we don't play the shame game. We don't play the blame game, but what we do play is the awareness game. And I want to become aware of areas of growth and improvement. I don't want to beat myself up and shame myself, because you opened up with the Bible there. Holy Spirit never, he always convicts. He doesn't condemn. And so we don't want to condemn ourselves and say, well, you know what, you're never going to make it. That's condemnation. Right. We don't play the shame game, but we do play the awareness game. And I love that you say that. And so, for you, like, when did you become aware of this? Like, was there a moment that is like, I guess the way I back this up is you and I, we've talked about there's tons of books out there on the opposite end of the 4-hour work week, set things up to make things easy and comfortable. And I think they have a place, but I think you experimented with some of that. And I have as well, but realize that, and there's work involved. There's work involved. Yeah. And so I would just love to hear, where did this kind of revelation come to you?
I don't know that I can pinpoint a specific, but I know that over the course of the last 2 to maybe 3 years, it has been something that has just been slowly developing and growing. And this is where we kind of get the title. And, I've said it a few times, one of these days I might write that book, The Lie of Comfort. But, a lot of it come out through the mastermind groups that, you and I do together. As more things became aware and I started consuming more and more success content, I noticed a reoccurring theme. A lot of the people that I listen to talk about, Tony Robbins says that growth begins where your comfort ends. It's one of the things that he talks about. And I just kept picking up on this reoccurring pattern, comfort. A lot of these guys reference comfort. And then I just began to understand that, well, there's a lie in that. If we buy into the comfort lie, we're holding ourselves back. And the more I became aware of it and stuff, it just, started pointing it out more and more in life. It becomes something you start picking up on after a while. It's like, oh, yep, there's that lie of comfort again. Andrew Frisella says, you are where you are because of you. You are where you are because of you. So, at some point we have to be kind of aware of the things that have been holding us back. Running, you referenced running earlier. I started putting together a little bit of stuff that I learned while running, and that's what I've titled a little bit of a talk that I'm working on. And the one thing I talk about in there right off the bat is that doing the work only feels good in 3 places. And that's in the beginning. When I started, I feel motivated. In the middle, when I'm numb from activity and nothing hurts and I have the law of momentum on my side. And then at the end, when I'm finished, those are the only 3 places where the work feels good. Yeah. And most of the time, and only in running have I found that it feels good in the middle. Yeah. Typically, it's just at the beginning when I'm motivated, and at the end that the work feels good. Yeah. And, and in saying that, I don't want to say that comfort is a bad thing, because there's also the importance of realizing the importance of the season that you're in. I just came out of a season where there wasn't a lot on my plate, so we had some rest and stuff like that, and now we're back into another rehab project, so it's time to go. It's time to work. But while I was in that season of rest, I was okay with some of this comfortableness because the comfort wasn't holding me back. But now that it's time to go, let's not let that lie of comfort sink in. Oh, I can take Friday off. We're doing okay on the project. Well, what am I sacrificing when I do that? And that's that awareness point, that key. Yeah.
Like that. And, the famous thought of the comfort zone. There's a zone of comfort, and we know that everything worthwhile is uphill. And if you've got dreams or vision or whatever, you're gonna have to step outside of your comfort zone, your zone of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've said many times, and you've heard me say it, and I've said it on this podcast, but the comfort zone isn't really comfortable. It's just familiar. It's what we are familiar with. And as I've been thinking about what you say in the live comfort, and taking the snooze button, for example, it is comfortable. It's also familiar, and creating a new habit, that is tough. It is really tough to get out of that comfort, that familiarity right there. And so I'd be curious for your thoughts on there is those seasons of rest that you have to, and I've been trying to balance this out of those seasons of rest, but if you extend those seasons of rest beyond their allotted time, now you just being idle and, like not doing anything. And so any thoughts on how to balance those, and like, how do you know which season you're in? Any thoughts?
Well, I think a lot of introspection will lead to that. And I think you only get that through doing that deep work, sitting with yourself, and starting to figure some things out. You talk about the seasons. I don't know that there's any blanket indicators that would tell you what season of life you're in. I can only speak to mine because I know where it's at. I know where I'm at. And that has been a journey of, 5+ years to even be able to scratch the surface on understanding that. On the other side of that, I have come to a point in life where I don't believe in balance anymore. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek. I know we have to have a certain amount of balance in our life, but it seems for me, what I've noticed is it's all one way or the other, and if I try to balance it, something gets missing. Right now I'm in planting season, when it's time to plant, I'm not worried about balancing and resting, through the gestation period. The season that I just came out of would have been, almost a business summer where things were just growing and I was waiting, So I think you have to have some insight into what your own personal business is, what your own personal life schedule is like, to be able to identify that, and then just honing in on what works best for you. Like right now I'm planting, man. I'm planting. We're building houses, we're remodeling, we're renting, we're flipping. In another month, I may be in a gestation season where I'm waiting for some things to be realized and I don't have a lot to do. Yeah. So I'll rest and I'll wait.
Yeah.
And then it's just, identifying those patterns in your own life. I think that become the most important.
Yeah.
And I love what one thing Jim Rohn says is that, historically we understand that after any winter, spring is coming.
Yeah.
Whatever he says, 6 million years that the world's been doing this, spring follows winter, summer follows spring, fall follows summer, and winter's coming again. We were having this discussion around the ant, and I made this comment the other day that, all summer long, the ant's thinking winter in preparedness. All winter long, the ant's thinking summer and resting in that while he's waiting for the good times to come back. So it's that own personal awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, you referenced the ant. There's a proverb we were talking about the other day, Proverbs 6. It says, "Go to the ant, you sluggard." Just make an observation of the ant. The ant prepares, gets everything ready in the summer for the harvest that it will reap later on. And there's something that stands out to me within a couple of things you said is the importance of the season that you are in. Having a personal awareness of the season that you are in. I'm a content junkie. I like podcasts and books and all those kind of things. One of the traps I fell into early on when I started reading everything is I read everything. Scott King. And what's interesting is you would find concepts that worked for one person, and then concepts that were in direct opposition that worked for the other person. And what I found myself trying to do was apply all of them.
Yes.
And what I had to do was slow down to see what you said is, what season are you in? And not just try. I think we like an example to follow. Sure. And I think having some stuff is good. We can learn from other people, but everything that you're saying about understanding where you're at and having that self-awareness is, man, that is just it's key. It's key.
I came across a quote the other day by Alex Hermosi, and let me see if I can. Oh, yeah. Rather than picking up your next book, take action on your last book.
Yeah,
You
man.
know, as people who like to consume content, it's really easy for us to get wrapped up in that motivational side of that, where it feels good, you know, and then I can look for my next motivational moment to kick me off in my next book, and if I'm not careful, I'll buy into that lie of comfort that the what I need to do is in my next big thing, when really I could probably take and apply some principles from my last one, get some momentum going, and create a lot of progress that way instead of continuously consuming content. And I went through the same season of exactly what you're talking about. I was listening to anything and everything, looking for my next motivational high to
Yeah.
try to find my next idea or something that I thought sounded good to act on. And when all I was doing was I was just pushing that carrot further and further out and never attaining it because I was waiting for my next thing to be
Mm-hmm.
the thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So that's why I love that quote. You know, instead of looking for your next book, if you're guilty of being a content junkie, instead of picking up your next book, put some action to your last one. You might find that it gets you somewhere.
Mm. Scott, I got a question for you. This is way out in left field, all right?
Uh-oh.
But you start, well, something I've been thinking on, all right? And if this is not any good, we can edit out anything, all right? So it's just me and you talking and people just listening in if we keep it in here, right? So you
Yeah.
start off with the verse of scripture there with Jesus being led into the wilderness. And I was just thinking on this and praying and meditating the other day. You know, he was in the wilderness. Holy Spirit sent him into the wilderness. And before I say this, by the way, I believe that Jesus is the Savior of the world. I believe he is fully God and fully man. And that if you don't have a personal relationship with him, that, hey, the door is wide open. He wants to have a relationship with you. And in his, you know, he's sent into the wilderness. It says he's there for 40 days and 40 nights. And a thought came to me. Do you think going in there, he knew he was going to be in there for 40 days? Do you think he knew the time frame? Because and the reason I thought about this, Scott, is like, you know, it says 40 days and 40 nights. And again, this is just me and my humanity, you know, my finite thinking. If I know that I got 40 days and the accuser comes to me on day 40, I just got one more day. I can hang out one more day. I don't
You're
know.
right.
It's just a thought. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
You know, I don't know. I don't know that I ever gave it any thought, but you bring up it's an interesting point. You know, if I know that my finish line is closer, it's easier and easier to stay on task. Um, I know that there's some significance to the 40.
Oh yeah.
So maybe, you know, we know that a lot of what Jesus did was referenced from the Old Testament, and some of those numbers matched up. Maybe he knew. I'll share this with you.
Come on.
At the same time, there was a point where I was attempting the 75 hard program, and I was probably day 15, 14, 15, 16, somewhere in there, and I missed a dietary goal by 10 minutes. And even though I knew that I was heading to bed in 10 minutes, I wasn't able to fight past the desire to have a couple of Oreo cookies. So I don't know that it would have made a difference if he knew that it was about to come to an end. Because even though I knew I was about to go to bed in 10 minutes, I lost that battle. You know?
Yeah.
But it's a good thought. It's actually a
It's
good
just
thought
a
to think
thought.
into.
Hey, you know, it's just a thought. Just a thought.
Man, you know me, I got crazy thoughts like that all the time.
I know it. I know it. That's good stuff. And you know, Jesus defeated the enemy. He defeated death. He defeated the grave, and he is alive today. And you know, it's just a thought as I was reading a verse of scripture earlier. So,
But you know, in and of that, you know, and taking just that concept right there out, you know, I mean, if we take it outside of the churchiness, you know, of it and stuff, and we actually start applying it daily, I mean, there's so many lessons that come from the Bible. I mean, from that, you know, persistence, everything that Jesus went through, being fully God, fully man, you know, what sometimes I think, and I say this, you know, give me some grace with my poor choices of words and some things, you know, sometimes we want to over deify that, you know, he wasn't man.
Hmm.
But yet at the same time, he come to model what it meant to live a righteous life as a man,
Mhm.
and that's, we're still way out in left field here, but there's a lot of practical applications that come from following these lessons and stuff. And what did Jesus do? He took what he knew, and he was able to fend off those attacks. It was through that study of philosophies and principles from the Bible, that he was able to overcome that temptation. And you talk about your own, my own flesh, my own stuff like that. I have stopped giving the devil, so much credit for things, because really, if you read and you look through that, all he can do is tempt us.
Hmm.
He creates the temptation, and it becomes up to you as to whether you buy that lie of comfort or you stick to your disciplines and move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And we could dive. I know you and I were talking about this the other day at supper, and sometimes we give the enemy too much credit.
Yeah.
There was one time I had fallen back into a trap, that I had, a sin cycle that I had broken out of. And I start praying to the Lord, and it's like, in Jesus' name, get out of here, devil, and all that. And I feel like the Lord was saying, it's like, no, that wasn't him. That was you. That was your flesh. Right. And there, like he does, he can come, and like you said, he tempts and those kind of things, but there's still that flesh part that is me. And allowing him into those areas, to his grace to wash over that. And man, it's interesting.
So let's touch on that for just a second.
Oh, come on, Scott.
Somewhere in there, you believed a lie that whatever that sin cycle was, that there was some comfort there.
Yes. Yeah.
And you bought into that lie. And that right there, I think, is the whole premise of what I talk about when I say that. We are faced with two choices, and we can believe that lie, that there's something comfortable coming, or we can choose the other path.
Yeah.
And that right there is the basis of what this conversation is about. Yeah. And once you start recognizing that there's a lie in that comfort, you can start calling it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's that awareness. But man, I love that. Hey, Scott, I want to ask you this. You talk about going back, taking up the responsibility for changing your branch. Mm-hmm. A lot of the people who listen, we got men and women who listen. We've actually, I know you listened to the podcast, and you listened to one the other day where the guy was on here talking about men and our responsibility. Mm-hmm. What about from a father's perspective? Can you speak into what role should fathers play in that, of changing our branch of the family tree? What's a father's role?
Well, for me, the role of being the father was every generational curse that I don't break, I am just passing to my sons. Mm-hmm. And as a father, I mean, what do we want for our children? We want the best for them. We want to give them the best start into life. We want to protect them as much as we can. We want to teach them and educate them as best we can. So that's what it kind of become to for me. I have a past history with some alcoholism, and for many years of my life, drinking was a problem for me. And there became some awareness around that. And it was like, if I don't break this, my sons will have to. Mm-hmm. And what am I conditioning my daughters to accept in a man, in a potential husband, in a potential father for their children, if I don't get some control over this right now? Yeah. As well as laziness, if I don't model what it means to grind and work and go out there and hunt something, kill it, and bring it home for us to eat, what do my sons then adopt as their philosophy? I mean, how much of this stuff do we see that goes from generation to generation? I come from a very poor part of the world, great people, but there's a cycle of the welfare and the accepting of the handouts, and I'm not knocking those programs. I think they were created. They've helped a lot of people, but we see a generational cycle of people that families just stay on it and stay on it and stay on it. And dare say it's been abused. I mean, it has, but that was never good enough for me. You know, I'm glad it was in place when I was growing up because it helped us through some hard times. But settling in that was never okay for me. I wanted more out of life, and it wasn't materialistic, you know. But I did want the finer things in life. You know, God put it in me to want great things because I believe He is a creator of great things. And this whole idea that, you know, abundance and prosperity and stuff like that is somehow sinful, that's a lie. That is a lie that has been propagated by mainstream media. I mean, I dare even go into the realms of the church that's kept people enslaved to that. You know, nowhere in the Bible have I found where purposefully being poor was considered a great thing. And if it's out there, by all means, send it to me. I'd love to read it. I'll study into it. You ain't gonna change my mind on it, but at least I'll not ever make that statement again.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, throughout the Bible, we see abundance, you know, prosperity. I mean, the Garden of Eden, it was created on a philosophy that consumption created abundance. The trees produced, we ate the fruit, we produced. So consuming and abundance are things that are biblical. And you can go listen to Myron Golden. He talks about it in depth. I would not even be able to, you know, give it the justice that he does. But he has a quote where he says that everything God needed you to understand about abundance and prosperity was done in Genesis chapter 1, just in case you didn't make it to chapter 2.
How about that?
But all of it comes with work.
Yeah.
You know, that stuff comes with work. And I think that's the part, you know, that we've got to resign ourselves to is, you know, there's no such thing as free lunch. Advice is worth what you pay for it. You know, those are some things that we throw around in our success world, you know. It's hidden in your work. And some people work harder than others physically, and that's okay. You know, I think God gave us each our own thing to be grateful for, good at. You know, what Solomon say in Ecclesiastes, you know, love your work, love your daily toil. You know, he talked about that throughout that, you know, because this is life.
When I do leadership training, one of the leadership laws we talk about is the law of respect. And we talk about people naturally follow leaders stronger than themselves. People follow people that respect themselves, respect other people, but respect for the work that they do. It doesn't matter the line of work that you do. Having a certain level of respect for the kind of work you do actually attracts respect. And people can tell that. You know, a thought that came to me as you were talking about the welfare mentality, and again, nothing wrong with that unless you're mooching off of it, but it can become a generational thing. We saw it in our physical therapy clinic a lot, where generations would come through on that system. And I think the system was there to, you know, provide and help you get a leg up, not to stay there. And I really thought about the conversations going around. It was a couple of years ago about the debate about the minimum wage debate, right? Like minimum wage should be this, minimum wage should be that. And, you know, minimum wage is a starting point. It's where you start from, right?
Right.
It's minimum because you start there and you grow from there. And I love the Jim Rohn quote that we talk about all the time. You don't get paid by the hour, you get paid for the value that you bring to the hour. And I know Scott King, I could get really fired up about this, but and you can too, but you get paid for the value that you bring. People don't get paid by the hour, but for the value they bring. Companies that sell products and services do not get paid for the product or service itself. They get paid for the value that product or service provides to the people making the payment. And so anyway, as you're thinking about that, I was just, that thought came to me about the importance of, man, that's a foundation, right? If you're on welfare, that is a foundation you can build from. Somebody has given you a leg up, right? They're giving you a helping hand. There's that you don't have to live out on the street, right? You got a house that you can live from, you know, and build from there. Build from there.
We live in the greatest country on the planet.
Yeah.
And in the greatest time in history that we're told about. And here's the thing, man. If you can't make a go of it here in America with all the fail safes and stuff that have been put in place, what lie of comfort are you believing? Oh, it's easy. It's easy for that guy over there. He had this or he had that to start, or he come from a family that did that. And while all those things are contributing factors, man, we live in a place that is just filled with abundance. People ask me sometimes, Scott, how is it that you're able to do what you do? One is faith. I have a faith that regardless of what happens, it's going to be okay. And the other side of that is there's a safety net built in America. If I go bankrupt in my business, they ain't come and take my kids away and put them in debtor's prison. I'm not going to have to go to jail over it. We have laws and things as a safety net, that if you go out there and try and fail, well, we got things that can wipe that out. Does it make it hard for you in the future? Yeah. Is it going to be a shock to your ego if you hit rock bottom again? Been there, done that, by the way. Yeah, it does. But if you're not trying out here today, man, what lie you believing?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you just not want it? And that's okay too. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody.
Yeah.
It's I tell you what, and I know we've said it and you've heard it 1,000 times, but being an entrepreneur is the only job you'll work 90 hours a week to avoid working 40 for someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny.
I love it. I wouldn't change it though. I mean, I love it. One of those things that Myron Golden says is that abundance and lack are always both present, and you get the one you focus on.
Yeah. Wow. That's good stuff. Sky King, here's my last question to you. All right. So you like consuming content. What content are you reading or listening to right now?
If I listen to podcast content, it's either Alex Hormozy or Myron Golden. And then I probably defer to Myron Golden more than anyone. And the reason being is that he talks about success principles through the Bible. I feel like the Bible, the book, the instruction, however you want to term it, call it, it's got a lot of success principles built into it that get overlooked. Get mislabeled or miscategorized. And I like the way that he brings it to a business perspective. As far as what I'm reading currently, I'm reading the book Thou Shalt Prosper by Rabbi Daniel Lapin, Lapin. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly. But again, it's the 10 Commandments for making money. And it's really not so much about making money as it is about some principles around, what it takes to make money in a good light. In America, especially of late, we've branded, being wealthy and being a businessman is something that's evil. Hollywood has done a disservice to the entrepreneur in that they've made all the wealthy businessmen evil people, and they're not. Wealth just makes you more of what you already are. So I kind of like, some of the principles that I found in there. And those are the things that I tend to listen to the most.
I like that. I was trying to find, here we go. You're talking about principles, biblical principles and those kind of things. I've been going back through started back over the Bible, and I was reading in Deuteronomy the other day, and, talk about the 10 Commandments. And God he had given these 10 Commandments. He gives them instructions for living and how to live well in accordance to his law. And I think many times people see these as laws of like, I can't do that, or I can't do this, or this is what I got to do. But it's not. This is what it says. It says this in Deuteronomy. It says, when you obey them completely and you display your wisdom and your intelligence to the surrounding nations, when they hear of all these decrees, it'll cause people to say, wow, how wise and prudent are these people? And how is it that they've got a God who will come so near? And it's by obeying the principles that he's put in place that it will display how wise you appear to be. And it says it displays his glory about, wow, got a God who will come near. They've got a personal God, not an impersonal God who's so far away, but one who draws near. That's a powerful thing, I think, as it relates to what you were saying and Myron Golden. So,
yeah.
Well, Scotty King,
I consume quite a bit of Cory Lee content too, though. If I'm being honest.
Let's go. Come on. Let me ask you something, Scotty King. What's something that that you've heard through some of the Cory Lee stuff that stands out to you?
Well, isn't that interesting?
Isn't that?
That's probably the one that you ought to have it put on a shirt, man. And I love how you teach that as a thought interrupter.
Yeah.
Because what does the Bible say about our thoughts? Take each thought captive, and if we're having some thoughts that are about to run us awry, just that little phrase, isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
You know, be able to stop and interrupt that thought and be able to reassess it for a minute. It's probably one of the more thought of things I think about when I think Cory Lee and Cory Lee content. And we don't put our should on people. We ought not should on people. That's been a good one. I've used that a lot, and one that I catch myself quoting all the time, saying when I'm giving advice to people is like, this buffet line style advice, man. You take from it what you want, you leave what you don't. And those are probably some of my favorite Cory Lee quotes.
There you go. I like it.
But your book, this one, the Leading with Insights through the book of Proverbs. I've really been enjoying that one lately. Going through and reading that. One of the men's groups that I've belonged to in the past, one thing that we did was we would go through a proverb a day.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when I find myself kind of dry in my biblical reading, I revert back to that foundation. And I love how this kind of partners with some of that, a little commentary, on the Proverbs. So I've gotten a lot of good stuff out of that.
That's good. Well, I appreciate that. Appreciate that plug. I did not pay Scott.
Absolutely.
That. So I just, hey Scott, I have not said this to anybody other than my wife. I'm actually working on volume 2 right
Nice.
now of that Proverbs right there. And I just share this. I know I may have said this to you, but sometimes people say, why do you write a book, or how do you write a book? And when I wrote that book, man, I started that book about 4 years ago, and it was just me and the Lord just sitting, and I was writing my thoughts. I never intended to write a book. And then you look back and say, this could be a book. It's added value to me. Hopefully it can add value to other people. And I know you mentioned earlier about when that book comes out. Your book is what I'm talking about. When your book comes out, we were talking the other day, and I told you the reason that I write. The reason that I write is hopefully it impacts people, right? Yes, absolutely. But I write to my great grandkids that I may never meet. I want them to know. I want a generation coming that I may never get to meet, to know what I was like, to know what I was thinking and what the situation was. I write to them, and so they'll understand what I was like, what I stood for, and really what our family values are. And if somebody else buys the book, that's great, awesome, and hopefully it adds value to them. But I write to a generation I may never know. And so, anyway.
Yeah, I do remember you saying that in conversation the other day, but I don't think it stuck out quite as much as it has this time.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense, that I can write it in that fashion and for that purpose. And if it sells to somebody else, great. But if not, I've passed on that legacy.
Yeah.
That they can look back and say, this was the dude that forever changed our branch of the whatever family tree.
Ooh, that was good, Scotty King. Let's go. Y'all better rewind all that. That was good. Scott, somebody's listening and they want to just connect with you. They just like the way you approach things, and maybe they want some one-on-one coaching from you, or they got, it's like, hey, I want to connect with you, Scott. How does somebody reach out to you?
So you can find me on Facebook, Scott King. My email is thatringthekinguy@gmail. That is also my TikTok user handle, thatringthekinguy. I post some rehab content on there as we're doing it. Couple running motivational videos that I've thought somebody might get some good insights from, and sometimes it's just me having fun, being goofy. Don't really do Instagram. Facebook's probably about the best way to find me, or on TikTok. Email me, always email me, thatringthekinguy. And if you're in Northwest Indiana or anywhere around Indiana, I like to tell people, if it's real estate, just ring the king, and that's how we kind of come up with that name. thatringthekinguy@gmail is my email, and find me on Facebook.
There you go. So if you're looking in the real estate world, you need somebody for one-on-one coaching, you're looking for a motivational speaker for your next event, ring that King guy. He'll be happy to serve you guys. And Scott, appreciate you coming on, man. I know you've
Yeah,
added a ton of value, and just appreciate all you do. And thanks for taking the time, man.
man, it's always fun. Let's not make it 4 years before we do it again.
Yeah, there you go. I know, right? And so, y'all, if Scott has added value to you, make sure you comment and I can get that along to him or reach out to him directly. But make sure you like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with any of the future episodes of the Cory Lee Show. Would love to get this content out to other people that, maybe we can add value to them. So feel free to share it, tag friends, family, all that good stuff. All the things people say to get their stuff out. But our goal, our number one goal, and I know this is Scott's goal as well, is to add value to people. My desire is to see leaders step into who they were designed and called to be, and to create other leaders, to build leaders at generational impact. And so, anyway, appreciate you
Absolutely.
guys. Hope y'all have an awesome day, and God bless.